Ooh, what's happening, man? So I wanted to do an updated, an addition, not updated. I keep saying updated, but it's not updating. I wanted to do an addition to the Ultraterrestrials video that is going to be in a new playlist. I've got the documentation of my research in a playlist. It is fairly long, so I think I'm gonna do some maybe restructuring. At the very least, I'm adding another playlist. Two, actually. One of them having to do specifically with the Deification school model. Name may change, it may not, I'm not sure. And then the other one will be specifically about Ultraterrestrials, because I don't think I'm even going to be done with that after this. So there is no order. I don't have notes specifically for this. I originally said I was going to be kind of reshaping or redoing that original video. I went back and watched it. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think it's pretty solid the way that it is. So, there is a lot of context that is in that first video. If you haven't watched it, go check out that new playlist. It's going to be in the description. So, I have been thinking about the role and kind of concept of Ultraterrestrials as it would pertain to this model, right? To this version or this perception of our reality. And it makes even more sense in this model than the original video that I made, because within that video there's context missing. There's questions that still couldn't necessarily be answered. For instance, I established that these beings seemed to be utilizing us for various reasons. Worship, sacrifices, providing those sacrifices, basically sex toys, breeding, slave labor, a lot of stuff, a lot of things. And though all of those things tend to make sense from someone who is in a position of power, that's a very age-old story of using people that are less capable or have less resources than you. But the question that still remained is, if you are this capable and this powerful, you have these abilities, why be here at all? Why come here at all? You have the capability to potentially make your own realms. You live in separate realms at times. Even the myths and we'll call them accounts of certain pantheons, they had their own realms. There's Duat, there's Olympus, there's Sheol, Underworld, there's many different cultures that have different names and different designations for where these deities sometimes resided. If you have this capability, or if you have these areas that are designated for you specifically, what do you even need to come here for, right? And so, within thinking about that, one of the things that I came to is that you're essentially keeping a secret. You can't leave. You can't leave. At least not completely. And in discussing this with my brother, we kind of came to the conclusion that there's specifically a realm or realms that serve as kind of like an in-between this one and, for all we can figure, base reality, meaning not this, the thing that we are all kind of feeling but can't reach. Many people refer to this in between. Infinite calls them interim realms. Many people refer to them as the astral realms, or there's different designations and names for different perceptions even of these places. Out-of-body experiences wouldn't necessarily fit into this specifically, but once you start to get into the things that people speak about when they go to astral realms or accessing Akashic records, some people say that they go to a place to do that. If these accounts are genuine and legitimate, which I believe at least some of them are, and I'll be honest, the only reason I do believe that some of them are is because I am a lucid dreamer. And I've said before in Is This the Dream, previous iterations of Is This the Dream, that some of those felt more real than this place did. So within that being the case, and the mechanics that seem to be at play in those places, I don't know if that's the astral realms or not that I accessed, or that I found myself in, but I think it's something like that. I don't really like making distinctions of things without at least corroboration, if not some sort of evidence, but that's very difficult to come by with stuff like this. So what we theorize is that they have access to those realms at will, without much effort, without much energy expenditure, and we also would in our natural state. And so if you were to be students that maybe potentially discovered that you could kind of game the system and traitorously backstab the majority, or if you were teachers that got sick of your job, for lack of a better terminology, or just decided, I would like to live much less, using much less effort. There's lots of different iterations or potentials for what could have been the reasoning for doing something like this. I talk a lot about how the laws of correspondence kind of say, if we are like how we are, then at least some of us could go bad. Part of this theory, part of this model that I've kind of been working up is that since this is something where you're gradually progressing, you're gradually not only learning mentally and spiritually, but physically. Your consciousness kind of transmutes your being, your capability within an avatar. Once you would reach a specific level, you would see a lot of the limitations that seem to naturally be on this place, even without telomeres. You would see even those limitations lifted. And so the things that they are able to do in infamy, in the mysteries and stories that have been passed down through religious texts and poetry and literature in general, those are not just attributed to those beings. They're attributed to us as well. We have just been, as I've said many times before, tampered with. And this would explain why the constant, poisoning and the constant manipulation and the constant torturing and, the many things that these beings do and have done in the past to the Adamu, to the humans, quote unquote. Within this model, it also would stand to reason, based on all the stuff that I've been saying and that we've been discussing, that much of what we believe about ourselves and about history and so on and so forth would be fabricated. These things would be essentially faked in attempts to continue to progress and further the separation between these ultra-terrestrials, such as, the Greek pantheon, Roman pantheon, the Anuna, the Nagas. Like, there's lots of iterations of this, including, extraterrestrials, or whatever you would want to call it. Again, there's lots of context explaining the connection between all of those different groups and pantheons. There's just a lot of context that is pretty instantaneously given shape and provides answers to a lot of questions that, generally each question would become its own thing. But with this, the answer is usually pretty apparent. So, the fact that you see, the farther you go back in, I won't say history, but I'll say in record, both what's considered to be real and what's considered to be fiction, you see that more beings had capability and had power, right? The power to manifest, what some would call magic, lived longer, healthier, in terms of, disease and sickness and things like that. And it leads to a chronology that kind of shows a progression of separation, as I mentioned before, but also creating this narrative that you are just a human, whereas there are others that are not. And if you'll also notice, you see that ultra-terrestrials, aka gods and demons and angels and aliens, potentially the alien thing's kind of newer, so scratch that. But the rest of those entities made themselves known physically a lot more often than they do now, right? You don't see anybody saying that they saw Neptune or Jupiter or Kronos or Zeus or El or Baal. You don't see anybody saying that they saw any of those beings. And if they do, if you really, really rake them over their coals, they're going to say, okay, well, I was channeling, or okay, I was in the astrals and I saw them, which means essentially they were sleeping. So why the difference? Why now do they not show themselves? Whereas before, in previous civilizations, they were kicking it. They were all over the place. They had, kingdoms here. They had courts. Many of the things that you see regular monarchs and oligarchs and all these, rulers having, they had, and then slowly throughout time, you start to see less and less of them being represented on this realm ever. They've always had a place to go somewhere else, which again, I think points to being the astral, for lack of better terminology. I don't think that that's actually what that is. What's being represented to us as the astrals seems to be another place. And it starts to get muddy. The interpretations or perceptions of what these places are and how you get there and where they exist definitely gets muddy, but that also has to do with another aspect that we've started to discuss, which is the concept of dimensions. Currently, we are, told we live in a technically a 4 dimension realm. Um, Height, width, and length would be the 3 dimensions. The fourth dimension being time. That kind of doesn't. To me, that seems like bad information. And we're still talking it through, but the concept of those three being separate dimensions, to me, it makes more sense that the physical, just the material, period, would be 1 dimension. Infinite then posed that the next level up, the second dimension, would be consciousness. So, mind and thought. And then I kind of added the potential to separate mind and thought from the ethereal, like consciousness in the sense of essentially the metaphysical, the pineal and pituitary, the mind's eye, for lack of a better way to say it. So essentially the mind's eye, meaning astral travel, lucid dreaming, clairvoyance, the things that separate the higher consciousnesses from the lower consciousnesses, such as what people refer to as NPCs. That seems to be another layer of dimension. For reference, look at cats and dogs. They seem to have another layer of perception than even those of us who are inclined to metaphysical things, like I just mentioned. You see a cat staring in an area, and it seems like it's looking at something, and then it moves with the thing. It's looking at something moving. Very well known that cats, dogs, and many other animals can see on more levels than we can. They can see more frequencies, or not frequencies, but they can see more spectrums of light than we can. And these are just words. You could replace spectrums of light with dimensions. They can see more dimensions than we can. That would explain the lore, specifically having to do with cats, but dogs too, and like I said, many other animals. So we're kind of looking in the area of dimensions and how they're explained currently, because honestly, a lot of the physics having to do with what is commonly accepted here, they don't have any basis. There's math that works, but math that does not support everything. In most of the physics models that we have been using up until this point, there's a lot of holes, and that's being talked about a lot currently. Donald Hoffman is one person who's talking about it a lot, but he's replacing it with stuff that still has holes. And so academia is kind of doing a circle jerk right now as far as trying to find theory that actually explains more. And there's parts like this that have not been mentioned at all by those camps, as far as like trying to correct or update our perception of this place. But again, as far as ultra-terrestrials go, this doesn't just include gods. It includes gods, angels, demons, the fae, fairies, the old gods. There's the fact that these beings would potentially be able to, for lack of more specific wording, shapeshift, change identities, change avatars, move back and forth between not only realms, but supposedly dimensions, if those are even different things. They could be, they are different things. There's the concept of layered dimensions, layered densities, and then there's also the concept of just straight other realms. Those could be the same thing, but that's gonna take. We're still working this out, because we're trying to use I wouldn't call it science, because a lot of science is just saying this is what it's going to be, and from now on, this is what everybody believes. We're trying to use as much context and evidence as we possibly can, rather than using simulation-based math and forceful, dogmatic physics and science. As far as context for the different types of ultra-terrestrials and why I'm regarding them as either teachers or students who, in one way or another, I view as traitors. Again, why not leave? Why do you stay here? Why do you keep coming here? The delineation made between ultra-terrestrial gods or deities, angels, demons, and supposed extraterrestrials, aliens. There's a lot of lines being connected between these two concepts. There are academics who have done a lot of research. I'm not trying to say that they don't do any good research, but a lot of them are making that correlation right now. Publicly, they're coming out and saying, you know what, it seems like potentially these things we're calling aliens are demons or angels, and vice versa. So it's cool to get that. I don't want to call that corroboration. It's cool to see others that have also researched a lot start to come around to that theory. And again, if you look through the records of people or beings who say they have come into contact with these entities, these beings, you start to see repetitive behavior, repetitive speech patterns, repetitive requests, like give me sacrifices, or just straight out taking people without asking. They eat food, they drink. I've talked about all these things in the previous video. So the delineation between the two is not far-fetched at all. And by two, I just kind of mean extraterrestrials and I don't know, what's that? Abrahamic? It's not Abrahamic, though. Gods, angels, demons. These are the angels, basically, is the main thing that has a connotation of Abrahamic dogma, but demons and gods, these seem to be just like a structure, like army or politics, a chain of command, power levels. So I think that the stories that we have been given and the stories that we have perpetuated, while they have some basis in potential truth, there's a lot of like misdirection and misinformation in order to keep us thinking that we know something when we really know very little. Especially now that, like I said, they don't show themselves, they don't necessarily hop out, I won't even say too often, they don't hop out at all. And this is all theory. A large portion of why this is being included in this theory model is to account for the many, 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 many representations of not just angels and demons and gods, but beings that have capabilities and abilities that are not explainable by current physics or experience. Basically saying you can't ignore these things and just say they're fake, when there are so many beings and cultures and civilizations that have referenced them, and then when you compare them to each other, there's too many lines to draw that show like, oh, this dude acts like this dude, and this dude does the same things as this dude, and this dude is a thunder god, and this dude is a thunder god. Zeus and El, thunder gods. The Sky Daddy. These are repetitive, redundant themes over and over and over again that show you that these are the same beings just kind of traveling the realm and recreating themselves as similar but different beings. And by way of that, and by fear tactics, and sometimes giving shit, they get worship and slave labor and adoration and, you know, sex slaves, all kinds of stuff. There's many accounts of supposed gods raping people. What purpose? What do you need to do that for? What do you, why, how does that make any sense? If you're not a flesh and blood being like I am, what do you need to do that for? If you're a god, you can create a being to have sex with you. You can go have sex with another god. You can, you know, I'm not going to keep doing examples. They're just going to get more disgusting and worse. But think about these. There's stuff like that that's plain as day in the text, where if you think about it for a second, the explanations don't make any sense. What do you need to come down here and have sex with the daughters of men for? If you're gods or angels, what sense does that make? And so when you think about it that way, and then you apply logic, is it possibly that these are beings that have way advanced technology and potentially physical abilities due to the lack of telomeres? I've referenced a show before named called Foundation. I would recommend watching the whole show. It can get boring at times, but it's kind of like Game of Thrones. And some people, you know, most people don't think Game of Thrones is boring. They just hated the ending. But to me, it can, you know, both of those, Game of Thrones and Foundation, at times can be a bit boring because it's very biblical in the way that the dialogue can be. But if you can follow the story, it's very interesting. They seem to be very Homeric, very like Greek Roman feel to it, even just in the culture specifically. But there's a couple episodes where they reference this concept that I'm talking about, where beings that have they have super advanced technology, they show up to a new world, they mystify these people with their technology because these people don't have it, they've never seen it before, and so they're revered as angels and gods. And the way that they describe these technologies, they sound metaphysical, they sound mystifying and mystical, but it's because they haven't come across these things before. So you end up with words, with phrases like chariot of fire, you know, sky chariot. You end up with things like this that sound very mystical and like magical, but it's technology. Most of the things that are referenced within these texts and within these accounts are technology. Just the more that you've seen moments pass, you get new wording for these things. So you go from chariot of fire to you know, sky boat to space plane. You know, you just get these different perceptions and different descriptions of essentially the same shit. The concept of biblically accurate angels could just be technology. Concentric rings of eyes. You know, we may be taking some of these descriptions too literally or not literally enough. When you apply these more logical ways to look at these concepts to this model, it makes a whole bunch of sense. It makes a whole bunch of sense. And, you know, a lot of it is corroborated by text. The concept of our genetics being fucked with is in the Enuma Elish. It's in the Bible. It's in many different religious texts. The concept of, you know, being able to live for 900 years to 1,000 years, once again, in many different religious texts. The fact that they are jealous of us, rather than just seeing us as bugs or something like that, or beings that are so much less than. It's the opposite. God told the angels that he loved us more than them. There's a lot of context clues that lend to this ultra-terrestrials aspect of the theory. It's strange, because it seems very much like there is a campaign right now, and it could just be people, it could just be beings that are here, that are pushing this campaign, but something seems very strange and more metaphysical in nature. I've talked about it a few times. I'm going to touch on it again. The concepts of channeling, of remote viewing is, I think that one seems pretty safe. I wouldn't necessarily follow the CIA's guide to doing it, just to throw that out there. There's lots of people doing that. That's fucking weird to do, to trust those people. The concept of grounding, and I say that more so because there's technologies that people are just not aware of that are being used and have been for decades. There's a video coming soon that I'm going to do expanding on something that Look Out for Charlie talked about. The human body communication. I talked about it in the anthrobotics video. I just didn't use that terminology. I'm going to be doing another video where it's a documentation video. I'm just going to be going over a bunch of peer-reviewed studies again to kind of give context to the concept of human body radius, like networks, essentially like just being able to target one person based on dirty boards and anthrobotics within the body, smart dust and whatnot. But anyway, there's a concerted effort to get people to do specific things that they're calling metaphysical, but all of them seem to be geared toward the result is you dissociating from your body. Meditation is dissociating from your body. Grounding can dissociate you from your body. Fasting, though supposedly there are health benefits to it, same thing there, dissociation from the body. Astral travel, dissociation from the body. Like, this is not, I don't believe in coincidences. It seems very much like not only are those things a concerted effort to get you to dissociate from your body, but then also there are other things kind of telling you it's okay to allow something to come into your body, whether that be a physical sense, like some sort of preventative medicine that is almost assuredly at this point shown to be poison. Same thing for foods, the air we breathe, all of those things. But then on top of that, more metaphysical stuff like doing rituals and calling it magic. It's my opinion that that's not magic. Those are systems that are created to allow others that are more capable in this realm than you are to just kind of use us for stuff. Some people call them walk-ins. I don't know how much I believe in that specifically, but there's definitely EEG technology, there's frequency technology, and generally things like that are designed after metaphysical shit. So if you can do voice of God technology, then there's probably beings that can just do that naturally. Same thing for, frequency manipulation, suggestibility, frequency manipulation. So, essentially, it just kind of seems like there is more than an obsession. I don't think that they're here because they want to be. I think they're here because they can't leave, just like we can't. They just have access to other places that we don't have control over. We have access. Some seem to have a pretty decent level of control even, but nowhere near what other beings have, ultra-terrestrial beings have. And this includes cryptids, you know, the ones that are not completely fabrication. And I'm not going to make a distinction because there's been so many psychological operations to try to, like, just basically make us feel like we're crazy that, you know, you say Sasquatch and we don't fucking know if that's real or not, dude. That is one of the main ones that seems to have a lot of evidentiary backing, just based on the concept of, like, other things that were created here that have been spoken about. But again, you know, I kind of take everything with a grain of salt, so who knows. But what I do know is beings that are capable of traveling back and forth between realms or between dimensions. Those are what I'm talking about as far as ultra-terrestrials go. And I don't just mean like blinking in and out of you know, our perception. I mean up and I mean down. Those are also dimensions. So past the firmament, that would include that place, and significantly longer distances below us. I don't even know if that's true. It might not be that far down, to be honest. How far do they let us go down? Not very far, right? You can go into like caves and shit like that, but the farther you go, the more dangerous it is. Unless you're with specific groups that have gigantic facilities. Deification in Turkey goes down a good 20 stories officially, which means it's probably deeper than that unofficially. The connecting underground civilizations to Deification probably similar, if not bigger. I think that is the smaller one, Deification, so it's probably bigger and deeper. There are many places like that here. I surmise that the Grand Canyon is likely one of those entrances. Mount Shasta, probably another one of those instances. I have a video, as above, so below, as within, so without. That's talking about going down. I still want to do that. I'm trying to build this company up so that I can raise money for things like that. But, you know, there's a lot going on, and a lot of it is subverted, and we are being subjugated. You know, I'm not sure that there's much more that I wanted to add. I think this is just kind of like a quick thing to document some of the additions, but I think me and Infinite are gonna do another video and kind of, we should have recorded what we talked about today. It was a flow state. It was definitely a flow state. We should have recorded it. I think we're gonna start doing that and potentially putting them up as documentation videos, at least sometimes. They may just be audios, because sometimes you know, doing the video thing is just extra. And a lot of the time we're doing our work on Discord, and I am not aware of a way to record Discord stuff, at least not on a phone, and not well on a phone anyway. There's apps, but they suck. So if you would like to donate to our research and to the channel, help contribute to this theory model that we're building. It is very time consuming and very difficult. It's very fun though, and it feels good to have a better understanding that, you know, mechanically makes more sense. The PayPal is in the description. We very much appreciate any donations. They go back into the work and help us to be able to do this stuff. If you have any questions or concerns or ideas or debates, or, you know, you want to participate, whether it be in a in a video or in something off record, anonymous or not. The email is gammaauobsidian, gammaauobsidian at gmail.com. And I think that's it. Later. Bye.